Today we have the history of the Punisher. Let's get it.
Today's episode of Variant is brought to you by Squarespace. Today on Variant, I give you the history of the Punisher.
I don't really know much about the Punisher's backstory. The most I know was that he was a Marine. I guess like as a Marine, he fell in love with just killing people or some shit like that. I think he got out of the Marines because of like he wanted to be closer to his family and spend more time with them and shit. Then they died, and then after they died, that's when he just, started, fucking shit up, basically punishing the people that he thought was needed to be punished. And I think he made his first appearance in an old Spider-Man comic book, if I'm right. I don't know, but let's see.
Where we love comics more than I'm excited to watch Daredevil Season 2. I'm your host, Eris Quinones. Now, I know we are currently in the middle of DC month here at Variant, but with Daredevil Season 2 releasing later this week on Netflix, there was no way I wasn't going to talk about one of the biggest aspects of this season, the Punisher. So today I'm going to give you guys the history of the Punisher, which will go along quite nicely with the history of Daredevil episode I did last year for Daredevil Season 1. But today, however...
Fun fact, I have not watched Daredevil at all. And I know that's going to piss a lot of you guys off because I've been posting a lot of clips from Daredevil, like Season 2. I've watched The Punisher Season 1 and 2, but I have not watched Daredevil at all. So if you guys want to see me, like, watching it here on YouTube, I'm probably going to be doing that soon, so keep an eye out for that.
Let's start this off with how the Punisher was created. The Punisher was conceived by Gerry Conway, writer of The Amazing Spider-Man at the time, who helped design the character's distinctive costume. Conway stated in 2002 that in the 70s, when I was writing comics at DC and Marvel, I made it a practice to sketch my own ideas for the costumes of the new characters, heroes, and villains, which I offered to the artist as a crude suggestion representing the image I had in my mind. I had done that with the Punisher at Marvel. Conway had drawn a small skull on one breast. Then Marvel art director John Romita Sr. took the basic design, blew the skull up so that it took up most of the character's chest. And just like that, we have the classic Punisher design from which all other Punisher designs are based off of. Now that's how Punisher got his costume, but why was he created and how did he get his name? Well, Stan Lee, Marvel's editor-in-chief at the time, once stated that he suggested his name. Stan said that Gerry Conway was writing a script and he wanted a character that would turn out to be a hero later on. And he came up with the name, The Assassin. Stan then mentioned that he didn't think they could ever have a comic book where the hero would be called the Assassin, because there's just too much negative connotation to that word. But then Stan remembered that some time ago he had a relatively unimportant character who was one of Galactus's robots, that he called the Punisher. Stan then thought it would be a good name for Gerry's new character. So he said, why not call him the Punisher? And since Stan Lee was the editor, Gerry said okay. And just like that, my friends, the Punisher was born, making his first appearance in The Amazing Spider-Man issue 129 in February of 1974. In this issue, Frank Castle, aka the Punisher, debuted as a vigilante assassin hired by the Jackal to kill Spider-Man for the apparent murder of Norman Osborn. As differences between Punisher and Jackal came to a head, Punisher realized that he was being tricked into killing Spider-Man, and that our friendly neighborhood web-slinger was not in fact a criminal or a murderer. The Punisher is portrayed as a bloodthirsty vigilante who has no qualms about killing gangsters, something that most superheroes of the time refrained from doing. J. Jonah Jameson describes him as the most newsworthy thing to happen in New York since Boss Tweed. The Punisher has most often been defined best over the years as a loner and someone who other characters don't often align themselves with. He is the true definition of...
Okay, so this is why I fuck with the Punisher. One, like he said, he's a loner, so he pretty much just runs fucking solo. But the other thing is, like, one, he's an anti-hero, which means he's not like a full-blown superhero, like doing shit for justice and shit. But he's also not like a full-on villain. He's kind of like in the middle, which I kind of fuck with. Another reason I really fuck with him is like the fact that he actually kills people. I don't like the idea of people who like, they fight crime and then they're like, yeah, let's put this guy behind bars. Because they're gonna get out of jail. I'm just gonna put it like that. They're gonna get out. This guy is just like, you know what, let me just kill this person so we ain't gotta worry about that shit no more. You feel me? So that's why I fuck with the Punisher. And I feel like Jon Bernthal did his thing, like playing as the Punisher.
Of an anti-hero operating outside the moral codes of most superheroes, but with a strict code of his own that is to protect the innocent and to deal with criminals permanently. With no superpowers, he relies on strict discipline and a punishing regimen of learning the hard way from his mistakes. As a result, he's a masterful combatant and strategist. The Punisher didn't get his own series until 1986, after Mike Zeck and Stephen Grant suggested that he was worthy of a title, and thus began the legendary journey of one of the most popular Marvel characters ever. When the Punisher made the leap from support character to solo character in 1986, he was unlike anything Marvel fans had ever seen before in a hero. He had a black and white costume with a skull as opposed to a brightly colored costume as worn by pretty much every other character in the Marvel Universe. It showed that this character was a lot darker than others. As time went on and the Punisher began to tussle not only with more dangerous criminals, but also with heroes such as Daredevil and Spider-Man and supervillains like Doctor Doom and Kingpin, he became more and more rough around the edges, more aggressive, and his stories gained more depth by inviting the readers into his fractured psychology. It seemed that he may not be the hero people expected, but possibly a ticking time bomb of a tragic man attempting to change the unchangeable. 2 years after Grant and Zeck's popular debut of the Punisher solo series, the War Journal series was introduced and the character exploded in terms of popularity and could be found literally everywhere. Aside from War Journal, there was also Punisher Warzone, Punisher POV, and Punisher Armory, among others. Punisher was so popular that aside from making many appearances beside Wolverine, Spider-Man, Daredevil, and Ghost Rider, he also appeared in a crossover with Batman. The character had a lot of trouble in the 90s with so many controversial and absurd stories destroying his fan base. And around the mid-90s when Marvel went bust...
how the fuck... Okay, how they do a crossover when, fucking... Okay, so Punisher is Marvel and then Batman is DC. So, how did that shit even come about? When the fuck did this happen again?
Exploded in terms of popularity and could be found literally everywhere. Aside from War Journal, there was also Punisher Warzone, Punisher POV, and Punisher Armory, among others. Punisher was so popular that aside from making many appearances beside Wolverine, Spider-Man, Daredevil, and Ghost Rider, he also appeared in a crossover with Batman.
When was this? August 1994. What the fuck? Okay.
The character had a lot of trouble in the 90s with so many controversial and absurd stories destroying his fan base. And around the mid-90s when Marvel went bust, he was one of so many characters who seemed to have fallen into a slump. That wasn't until Garth Ennis picked up the character for the new imprint that was darker and grittier, Marvel Knights, which made all of us love the Punisher once again. Now that's Punisher's brief history over the years, but I've yet to talk about his comic book origin, which we see in Punisher Year 1. So I'm gonna do that, like right now. Frank Castle was a dedicated U.S. Marine excelling as a soldier in every way. He was a force to be reckoned with during the Vietnam War, but also a dedicated family man. After a close call in the final years of the war, he resigned to a Special Forces instructor post in upstate New York so that he could be closer to his wife Maria and his two kids, Lisa and Francis. But disaster struck one day years later when Frank and his family went for a picnic in Central Park, only to witness a mob execution on a high-profile member of the Mafia. The mob fired on his family, killing them all before his very eyes, thus destroying everything he lived for. He becomes suicidal and seeks justice through the law, but after he discovers a trend of corruption that makes it impossible for him to do right by the memories of his wife and kids, Castle goes off the rails and decides to take matters into his own hands.
Okay, so now it makes sense why he is the way that he is, why he doesn't give a shit about like justice and all that shit, because he tried to go that route, but I guess it just didn't fucking work out, and then he was like, all right, fuck it, I'm gonna take matters into my own hands and just start fucking offing people, which I fuck with that way more than the whole justice thing.
Frank ended up talking with a sympathetic detective who hinted that equipment and weapons were in his car's trunk and that he wouldn't be surprised if someone broke in and took everything. So of course Frank got that hint and took all the supplies, and he puts on a bulletproof vest which he paints the now iconic white skull on, becoming the Punisher. The story also features Billy Russo. The Costa mob hired him to kill Castle.
So the actual Punisher Netflix series actually, they got this shit right. You know, got like the vest or whatever the fuck and spray painted that shit up there. And now they're talking about Billy Russo, which is Jigsaw.
The Punisher. The story also features Billy Russo. The Costa mob hired him to kill Castle, but he failed. Castle tracks down Russo, but lets Russo live to tell the rest of the Costa mob that he was coming for them. Castle then pushed Russo through a window, disfiguring his face. This is what disfigured Billy Russo's face.
Yeah, see, in the Netflix show, if you guys haven't seen it, spoilers, I'm sorry. Basically, the Punisher like smashed his face into a fucking mirror at a carnival and fucked it up that way.
which later led to him becoming the Punisher's enemy, Jigsaw. With Punisher's origin out of the way, let's talk about some of his training and abilities. Castle has an extensive background with weapons and hand-to-hand combat and is in peak physical condition. His missions are always well planned and carried out with the utmost preparation and attention to detail.
Fun fact, I did a video like reacting to like his workout routine and shit, so if y'all want to go watch that shit, feel free to fucking do that. Yeah, there'll be like an end card at the very end of the video leading to that video if y'all want to watch that after this, but I'll also try to link it in the description if I don't forget.
Able to access and adapt to just about any situation and turn it to his advantage using only his skills and killer instinct. He has a very high threshold for pain and is able to undergo surgery without any kind of anesthesia. He can take multiple gunshot hits, stab wounds, and still continue fighting. He can survive multiple...
Yeah, I have a high pain tolerance. That's what I meant by saying. But surgery with no anesthesia, fuck that. I've been through surgery and they had to put my ass to sleep.
Explosions that would kill most humans, as well as take hits from superheroes and villains with superhuman strength and continue fighting. The Punisher's reflexes are second to none. He has been shown to be able to shoot Spider-Man, dodge Captain America's shield, and stun Daredevil with a tranq dart. And this should go without saying, but Punisher is a master with all forms of weaponry. But with all that said, this brings me to reading recommendations. You have Punisher Year One, Punisher Circle of Blood, Punisher Welcome Back Frank, Punisher Max Born, and Punisher Max in the Beginning. Squarespace is the easiest way to create a beautiful website.
Okay, Squarespace,
so
I'm good on that.
Last Thursday, as we all know, Marvel released the second Captain America Civil War trailer. And ever since, people have been asking me to give my thoughts on it, which is what I'm about to do. I would have given my thoughts sooner in a one-shot episode, but I was
that's not what I'm here for. But yeah, anyways, that's it for this video. If you guys enjoyed, you know, like, subscribe, all that shit or whatever. Yeah, and I'm out this bitch. See you later.